The official term for an athlete that uses a banned substance during competitive levels of sport is doping. The banned substances and methods vary based on sport and whether or not it is being used in competition versus out of competition. However, there is a majority that are banned regardless of the circumstances. Drugs can be banned for one of two reasons. Either it has performance-enhancing properties, or it has the ability to mask the presence of a different banned drug during testing. For example, on the right side of the screen, you can see the list of different types of substances and methods that are banned at all times by the Anti-Doping Agency. One of which are diuretics, which are commonly used to try and pass a drug test. There are a few different categories drugs can fall within. PEDs are performance-enhancing drugs, like steroids and human growth hormones. These help people increase their muscle mass and improve their performance at a faster rate. There are also prescription drugs like Oxycontin, which help people manage their severe pain so they can keep going 100% to their fullest potential. However, people can quickly develop a psychological dependence to them, which makes them really addicting. There are also stimulants, for instance Adderall, that help improve somebody's alertness, their focus, and their reaction time. And lastly, there are others like alcohol and marijuana, which help reduce anxiety and help somebody relax. There have been studies that show that athletes actually use these before games and competitions to help calm their nerves. So why do athletes use? An athlete's identity and self-esteem can be shaped through sports, and when athletics play such a large role in a person's life, they are willing to take risks I think that they wouldn't otherwise be willing to take. When studying drugs in sport, a sociologist cannot just simply focus on the actions of an individual athlete, because the actions that they take are made under the influences of social forces and pressures. We have this mindset nowadays that we must win no matter the cost, and we must do whatever it takes, and that needs to end. Athletes want to be the best in little time possible, and they believe that drugs are the answer to improving their athletic performance and seeing results faster. They also see drugs as a way to cope with mental illness, deal with pressure, treat their physical injuries, and cope with retirement when they get to that stage. There are just so many external factors and societal pressures that play a large role when we ask why. Why would they risk their health for something so minimal? The so-called benefits and behaviors I explained on the previous slide may lead to numerous negative effects, a few of which include loss of previous awards and achievements, suspensions and bans, job loss if not performing and doing what is asked of the athlete, safety concerns, and many health problems, including death, addiction, overdose, and finally, the loss of friends and support of teammates. The choice to take performance-enhancing drugs, or any drugs for that matter, is a personal choice. However, it is a choice that concerns more than just the one individual. As competitive sport has grown, other worldly issues have played a role in the relationship that is built between society and the sport itself. For instance, how the nature of the sport has changed, the importance of national pride, and the overriding need to win. Sport used to be an activity people would participate in for their own enjoyment and has turned into something so much bigger. Now, people can view other successes within minutes because of social media and the news, whereas in early sport, successes were shared by word of mouth and it wasn't as readily spread across countries. This is where all the outside challenges come into play and pressures rise, which cause athletes to take risks with drugs because they just want to be the best. An example of a professional athlete that struggled with drug use was Darryl Strawberry. Darryl grew up with an alcoholic and abusive father who mentally destroyed him. He carried that emptiness inside of him from childhood into adulthood and into his career as a professional baseball player. Although he achieved great things and was super successful, he just felt empty inside, and not even his fame and fortune could fill the void that alcohol and drugs did for him. He just felt broken. He suffered multiple suspensions from the MLB because of his drug addiction. He spent a lot of time in rehab and in and out of prison, but he got himself the help that he needed and reinvented himself. Darryl Strawberry is an example of an athlete who dealt with mental illness and family trauma and didn't use drugs as an enhancer. I've linked a short clip of him talking about his story and his recovery from drug abuse. I wanted to include this information about the NCAA, first because as a member of the Grand Valley community, we are a part of the NCAA, but also because these stats show that not all athletes use drugs to enhance their performance, but to cope with the social pressures of the world. First, 44% of male student athletes and 33% of female student athletes reported binge drinking. 22% of student athletes reported marijuana use, and 23% of student athletes reported using prescription pain medication. 6% of them didn't have a prescription for the medication. All these numbers are down a significant amount from the past years, and it has also been shown in a different study student athletes are less likely to engage in drugs than other college students, but student athletes are still at a higher risk for addiction because they identify as an athlete and need to perform 100% of the time and feel a lot of outside pressure. Overall, when we talk about solutions to drug usage and drug abuse, I believe that number one is educating people on drugs and the consequences they have. Because if more people are informed, it can help prevent the usage of it altogether. Athletes need to change their mindsets from winning at any cost. They must take into account the long-term effects as well as the short-term and not fall into society's trap. As a whole, we can also find alternative treatments instead of turning to drugs to cope with chronic pain, like yoga and massage therapy. The bottom line is there are other ways for athletes to achieve the results they want, but the outside world is taking too much control of their choices. It's hard for them to look in another direction.